This year, I've really been enjoying my deep dive into TNA pay-per-views from the year 2006. 20 years later, it's crazy to see how wrestling's most persistent company lives on, not just in its current state on AMC, but in the influence that that year in particular had on the entire state of wrestling. One of TNA's brightest stars during their peak was Samoa Joe. An indie standout from California, Joe quickly gained a reputation for being among the best in the world. With a hard-hitting style and a silver tongue, he changed the perception of what it meant to be a bigger man in wrestling. He was a cornerstone of Ring of Honor, holding their world championship longer than anyone else, waging war with greats like Kenta Kobashi and CM Punk. He briefly juggled dual schedules before eventually going full-time with total non-stop action, creating a stellar body of work in both the X Division and amongst the heavyweights. His feuds in the Impact Zone with AJ Styles, Christopher Daniels, and Kurt Angle were the stuff of legend. He was cool, he was confident, he was a super athletic ass kicker who filled the role well. But as was the case with so many in TNA, creative couldn't stop getting in the way, frequently starting and stopping his pushes with no rhyme or reason. Having had enough of the company's ineptitude on multiple fronts, Joe let his contract expire in February of 2015, leaving after nearly a decade there. Joe's time in TNA spawned a lot of what-ifs about his career, but the most persistent one that I remember was, what if Joe had a shot in WWE? After all, he had been on their radar as far back as 2000, working for UPW in California back when it was a WWF affiliate. He'd even had a tryout match against S.A. Rios on Jacked, only to be told by Jim Ross that he was not the kind of talent they were looking for. According to Joe, that only motivated him to hone his craft around the world, which helped him build his resume and ultimately come back to where the journey began. For years, people assumed Samoa Joe would never get a fair shake in WWE because of his size or his in-ring style, but after years of grinding elsewhere, it was finally going to happen. Would WWE be able to utilize Joe in a way that TNA could not? Would he be allowed to do the kind of things that got him over in the first place? And would he be able to withstand the booking whims of the man in charge? Let's find out as we grab our white towels and explore the WWE run of Samoa Joe. But first, if you haven't yet, be sure to like this video and subscribe to Wrestling with Regret. Let's begin. May 20th, 2015, Orlando, Winter Park, Florida. The date and location of NXT TakeOver Unstoppable. After a fun evening of action, the show was set to end with Kevin Owens doing the thing he loves best, trying to murder Sami Zayn, only for him to be interrupted by a debuting Samoa Joe.
Samoa Joe!
Man, you hate to see the sound guy mess up a moment like that, pressing the wrong button and jumping to a song that totally misses the mark and in no way matches the intensity of Joe's persona. Oh, that was intentional, you say? Strange and short-lived choice of music aside, the moment of Joe's debut and his confrontation with KO was huge for fans of the Black and Yellow. After everything he'd accomplished in his pre-WWE days, a lot of people were surprised he didn't just leapfrog NXT and debut on the main roster like AJ Styles would a year later. But this seemed like the perfect entry point for the Samoan Submission Machine. By this point, NXT had firmly established itself as a much different entity from main roster WWE in terms of storytelling, building talent, pacing, and so forth. It was peak Ring of Honor, but with a WWE sheen and a Crockett-inspired booking philosophy. This was the place to soft launch all the guys who, at another time, may never have gotten a look from WWE for whatever reason. Guys like Samoa Joe. Though NXT was certainly smaller in scale, Joe represented everything that NXT was, and the main roster wasn't at the time. WWE was pleasantly surprised by Joe's merch sales after his debut, meaning what was originally a non-exclusive contract was soon upgraded to a full-time one. Joe signed the new deal on June 1st, the same day he would wrestle Tyson Kidd in a dark match before a Superstars taping. Sadly, this was the match in which Kid suffered a career-ending spinal cord injury as a result of a mistimed muscle buster, which is why Joe almost never used the move again in WWE. Whether this consciously or unconsciously impacted Joe's trajectory in the company, it's anyone's guess. Accidents and injuries do happen in wrestling, even on the most basic or safest of moves, and I think everyone involved inherently understands that risk. Still, Joe has said this was the biggest regret of his career. Later that year came the inaugural Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic, a tournament named for the late legend and WWE producer who made the Crockett Cup famous. At NXT TakeOver Respect in October, the unlikely duo of Samoa Joe and NXT champion Finn Balor beat FTR, back when they were called the Mechanics, then the team of Baron Corbin and Rhino in the finals. Matter of fact, just like Joe and Finn, Corbin and Rhino were also an unconventional tag team that went over an established one in American Alpha to get to the finals. Man, I guess no matter what part of the totem pole you're on, it's fuck tag teams in WWE. For winning the tournament, Finn and Samoa got a big trophy and a main event program as Joe turned heel on the champ the following month. It led to a pair of great takeover matches for the title, first in London that December, then again in Dallas in April of 2016 during WrestleMania weekend. That match was notable because within the first few minutes, Joe suffered a huge cut on his face, leading to things grinding to a halt on a number of occasions.
He didn't fight for this opportunity to have it taken away like that.
They managed to keep going in spite of the injury, but sadly for Joe fans, Dallas would not be his moment, as Finn retained the belt again. But then at a house show in Lowell, Massachusetts 3 weeks later, Papa H shocked everybody. What a bold move to have the title change at a show like this. What another great boon for NXT. Wait a minute. Go back a little bit. I wanted to see somebody in the crowd. Hold it right there. Oh my God, I know that curly mop and those chubby cheeks anywhere. That's a young Jordan Castle, my former broadcast colleague from Prestige Wrestling.
That's right, Z-Man. That was 15-year-old me sitting front row to witness history. One of the coolest things I ever got to see live. And guess what? I still have the Bailey shirt that I wore that night.
Oh wow, that's cool, man. I'm sure it fits differently on you now.
Yep. And the best part? I still haven't washed it since that night. Oh, childhood. What happened? Why did you leave me so soon, sweet innocence?
Should we plug CastleZania?
Yes, that's right. CastleZania. That's yours truly and the influencer. Quality wrestling commentary for hire.
That's right, Jordan. Hey, wrestling promoters, we're available live in person or in remote post-production. We can work with you and your budget to make your wrestling commentary sizzle.
You don't believe us? Just listen to the amazing matches we called for Prestige over the years, and you be the judge yourself.
Elevate your wrestling show with winning commentary from Team CastleZania. Email bookcastlezania@gmail.com today. Aside from oh so subtly planting the seeds for one of the most shocking world title wins of 2023, most of the Samoa Joe era in NXT was defined by his feud with recent newcomer Shinsuke Nakamura, which ran all the way through the end of the year. The two traded the title back and forth as the brand continued to expand its global reach. Toronto, Osaka, and finally Melbourne, when Shinsuke retained against Joe in a steel cage, his final televised NXT match, for now at least. Well, Joe spent a good amount of time in the developmental league. He had some awesome matches. He helped build it up. So now it was time for him to finally graduate to the main roster, where he would no doubt be rewarded for all of his efforts. Foolishly optimistic of me, I know.
Seth is there. Who the?
On the Raw after the 2017 Royal Rumble, Samoa Joe made his long-awaited main roster debut as Triple H's hired goon to take out Seth Rollins. Seth was out for revenge against the H-Man for screwing him out of the Universal title the previous year for reasons, and Joe was paid to stand in his way. It appeared as though Rollins and Joe were on a collision course for the next pay-per-view, but then those tricky injury lines blurred once again for the Architect. It was later reported that during Joe's attack, Rollins re-aggravated the old knee injury that put an end to his first WWE title reign, his WrestleMania future once again in doubt. With Seth briefly on the shelf, Joe had no other reason to be tight with Trips, so he just kinda hung around doing dick all for the next couple of months. He beat Sami Zayn on his pay-per-view debut at Fastlane, then totally missed WrestleMania 33, while Seth, the guy he beat up to hopefully keep out of WrestleMania, fought and defeated Triple H that night. Gosh, sure looks like mission failed, Joe. I'm sorry, Joe. Please don't take that seriously. Don't take it personal. I'm sorry. I know it wasn't your fault. It was the booking. I'm sorry. In the years since that Mania, I have wondered if Seth's knee injury was even legit. It did seem convenient that it played so well into his feud with Triple H and the unsanctioned gimmick they added to their WrestleMania match. If only there was some groundbreaking documentary series that could have told us, just to be sure. Whether it was a work or not, it seemed obvious fairly quickly that creative had no plans for the subject of this week's video beyond attack Seth from behind and win some matches. And even that faded away by late April at the appropriately named Payback pay-per-view when the Kingslayer reversed the Coquina Clutch into a pinning combination for the win, snapping Joe's unbeaten streak. The Joester looked like a killer in all of his matches, even if he wasn't always on the winning side. But just when this run was starting to feel bleak, he managed to secure a spot in the main event for Extreme Rules in June, a five-way against Finn Balor, Roman Reigns, Bray Wyatt, and Seth Rollins to determine the #1 contender to Brock Lesnar's Universal title. And in what was seen as a genuine shock, he won!
Balor's fading! It's over! Samoa Joe wins!
Yeah! They still did surprises on the main roster back then. Crazy, right? Going into Extreme Rules, I can't remember anyone thinking that Joe would be the next man to challenge WWE's final boss, before The Rock made that his thing. But as surprises go, his win was certainly a welcome one. In the build, Joe repeatedly got under Lesnar's skin, and perhaps even put a little fear in him. He made a huge statement on an episode of Raw, grabbing Paul Heyman and choking him out in the middle of the ring. Can you believe it? He shared TV time with a Samoan wrestler and didn't immediately get weepy-eyed. Such restraint. Anyway, let's see what 2017 Bryan had to say about it.
I'm really excited now about the prospect of Samoa Joe and Brock Lesnar fighting each other for the championship. Wow, that's awesome. That match, I think, I could be wrong, but I think is going to be dope.
And let's see how it ended up.
Lesnar beat Red. Oh, no, no! Lesnar! What? An F5 by the champion! Wow! And he retains the title!
Cool, man. Fuck me for getting my hopes up. In all honesty, they did a good job baiting fans into thinking something major was going to happen during the match. Joe slammed Lesnar through the announce table before the first bell, took him to Dick Kick City, then put him in the Coquina Clutch for a good old time, longer than pretty much anyone else by that point. But 1 F5 was all she wrote for Lesnar to retain in under 7 minutes. The match was 95% badass, but that last 5% sucked the wind out of the crowd. Fans wanted Joe Kobashi, but they got Lesnar Ambrose instead. Well, that was a fun flirtation with something interesting. Back to the status quo. But then again, maybe it's good that he lost after all. I wouldn't want my first WWE title reign to have begun at Great Balls of Fire. Joe got another shot at the big red belt at SummerSlam, this time on a 4-way with Braun Strowman and Roman Reigns. Lesnar won that one too, but at least the match was fun and it actually got some time. It was soon after SummerSlam when Joe got his first major knee injury while on the main roster, putting him on the shelf for several months. And if you've seen some of my more recent videos on careers that might have been, you'll know that this injury is sure to not be the last. On the night before Halloween, Samoa Joe returned to action on Raw and made short work of Titus Worldwide. Despite picking up where he left off and working heel, the fans were elated to see him back on TV. The following week, he got into an impromptu scrap with Finn Balor, which GM Kurt Angle saw as good enough reason to put both men on Team Raw for the upcoming Survivor Series match against Smackdown. No, seriously, that was pretty much the way it happened. He said that he liked their competitive spirit or something. Look, brand supremacy deserves shitty builds, so what are you gonna do? Team Raw won the day against Team Smackdown with no thanks to Joe, sadly, as he was eliminated first from his team. Side note, how weird was it that in the end they teased something in the future between Triple H and Braun Strowman completely out of their ass and then did absolutely nothing with it afterward? Well, they also made Kurt Angle look stupid and Shane McMahon look like a hero by the end of this match, so clearly they had their priorities in order. Working alongside Sheamus and Cesaro for a bit, Joe wrapped the year up as an antagonist to the recently reunited Shield and had some great matches with Roman Reigns during this time. That said, the whole thing was kind of a mess from the start. While Ambrose, Rollins, and Reigns finally got back together and fought with Joe Bar, they were also dealing with the meddling of Jason Jordan, who had just been revealed as Kurt Angle's secret illegitimate son. I remember a lot of people saying it would have made more sense for the other member of American Alpha to get that role, but honestly, I think Chad Gable dodged a bullet with this one. He had to endure Shorty G so he could become El Grande Americano. Then Dean Ambrose suffered a tricep tear on Raw during a six-man match involving Joe, putting him out of action for 9 months. 2 weeks after that, Joe himself injured his foot during a match with Titus O'Neil, forcing him to miss yet another WrestleMania. But, he'll get his moment next year, right? Oh, and then Jordan was forced into early retirement in the middle of his angle with Rollins due to a neck injury, making everything on Raw for the last several months pointless, unless you were Roman Reigns, Braun Strowman, or Brock Lesnar, basically. The problem with Joe being a reliable hand while also being injury-prone meant that he was really good at elevating other people, but that's about all they gave him. After returning to TV after Mania 34, Joe failed to win a single pay-per-view match for the remainder of 2018. At the Greatest Royal Rumble, he lost a ladder match for the IC title. He was traded to Smackdown, but not before giving Roman another big win in the main event of Backlash. He failed to win that year's Money in the Bank ladder match. In only a couple of years, Joe felt more out of place in WWE than the first theme he came out with on NXT. But it's okay, because in WWE, even if you lose and lose and lose, you're always just one sneak attack away from getting a title shot.
Whoa, guys, whoa! Trying to put the WWE champion to sleep!
Despite him failing to win any matches worth a damn all year, the company did a good job helping fans forget all that, as Joe reignited his old rivalry with AJ Styles. Without having to even mention TNA, they were able to establish the deep personal history the two had had over the years. Joe spent the bulk of the feud getting in AJ's head, invoking Styles' wife and children, even invading the family home.
Oh, Wendy!
Did anyone else get a craving for Wendy's when Smackdown came on, or was that just me? I'll give them credit, they made this angle go for a while. Their match at SummerSlam went to a DQ when Joe got too close to AJ's wife and kids in the crowd, causing the champ to lose his cool. Well, hey dummy, why'd you bring them to this show of all shows now that they're being dragged into the drama?
I made you a promise, Daddy was coming home. It looks like he's not, but I'll be your new daddy.
Then came Hell in a Cell, Super Showdown, and Crown Jewel. All great matches, all great big clean losses for Joe. But hey, Survivor Series was coming up next. He got a spot on Team Smackdown. Time to show everyone what's up. Oh, never mind. He got taken out 30 seconds after the first bell rang, so Joe's bad luck continued into 2019. He went nearly 25 minutes in that year's Royal Rumble match before getting dumped out of the ring. Then he was the first man gone from the Elimination Chamber match the following month, once again bested by Styles. But as WWE has taught us again and again, wins and losses clearly don't matter, because despite looking like more of a goof than he did in his Nation of Violence phase, he somehow managed to qualify for and win a fatal four-way on a SmackDown in March to win the US Championship, his first main roster title. I suppose it did speak to the resilient nature of both his character and his fans for accepting it. Despite losing all the damn time, he was often a split second from victory, still a serious threat to all he came across, so it was always plausible for him to win some gold. Finally, after 3 years in the company, Joe had his time to shine on the grand stage of WrestleMania 35, a U.S. title defense against Rey Mysterio. Boy, I cannot wait to see what these two have in store under the huge stage. Oh, never mind. In the time it took me to say that, Joe has already made Rey tap. Well, at least he won.
Wow! Y'all missed it!
How ironic that, on the longest single-night Mania in history, Joe and Rey would have the absolute shortest match on the card, cut for time since other matches had been going long. Hey, H-Man, I see that you and Batista are penciled in to go 25 later tonight, and you two sure as fuck don't need to go that long, so what if you move some of that time over to the rest of the card? No! Of course, how wrong of me. Mysterio got another shot at Joe's U.S. title at Money in the Bank, and they let the match go nearly twice as long, a whole minute 40. But even that notwithstanding, it was still bullshit, since Joe's shoulder was clearly up during the cover. Then we learned that Rey suffered a shoulder injury during the match somehow, forcing him to relinquish the belt back to Joe 3 weeks later. Good lord, were these two in a race to see who could hit their deductible the quickest? Joe got to hold the belt for another 3 weeks before losing it to a different high flyer in Ricochet at the first and only Stomping Grounds pay-per-view in Washington State. So with Joe once again without a championship, another big loss to his name, how is he going to bounce back from this one? You guessed it, by attacking WWE Champion Kofi Kingston and getting a title shot. So simple! Why doesn't everybody try that? At Extreme Rules in July, Kofi Mania rolled on when Kingston pinned Samoa Joe. Then later that month on the WWE Network special dubbed Smackville, something I completely forgot had existed until I did research for this video, Kingston again came out on top against Joe and fellow perennial carpenter Dolph Ziggler in a triple threat match. That fall, WWE dusted off their King of the Ring tournament for the first time in 4 years, and they actually had some interesting booking for this one. Joe and Rico fought to a draw in the second round, forcing the two of them to face eventual winner Baron Corbin to see who would make it to the finals, and of course, Joe took the pin. Joe suffered yet another injury during the tournament, this time breaking his thumb, but this time WWE tried something different other than taking him off TV for the umpteenth time, having him moonlight as a color commentator on Raw for the next several weeks. Around this time, Seth Rollins was in the midst of starting up one of his many stables, having recruited the Authors of Pain into his weird quasi-cultish group. On the December 23rd edition of Raw, Seth's heavies wanted to punish Rey Mysterio, but then Joe got in their way.
What you guys doing? What? You want me to move? If I get up, it's not to move.
It turns out keeping it real went wrong here, because Joe found himself on the receiving end of the AOP's fists to close out the show. This would prompt Joe to return to action, finally officially a babyface after years of fans cheering him regardless, joining forces with Kevin Owens to fight Rollins and his crew, which now included Buddy Murphy. The feud raged on through February, when Joe and KO teamed with the Viking Raiders to battle the Messiah Maniacs. It was a wild match, with tons of big guys taking to the air, but in the end, Rollins hit Joe with the stomp to win the match, because of course he did. This would be Joe's last WWE match for nearly 2 years after he suffered another injury. But it didn't come during this match or even on a house show. No, it turns out Joe suffered a concussion while wrestling a match for a commercial shoot. Oh, and right after that, he got suspended for violating the wellness policy, being off for 30 days, and missing WrestleMania once again.
This sucks, man.
By the time Joe was back in WWE, the COVID-19 pandemic had begun, and shows looked a little different for a while. Perhaps rightly figuring out the big guy needed some more rest, he was placed back on commentary for the rest of his main roster run, adding legitimacy and his clever wit to the table alongside Tom Phillips each week. For me, Joe's greatest contribution to commentary was how he described Drew McIntyre's headbutt.
Oh, give us a kiss. Oh, give us a kiss.
For the Draper.
Oh, give us a kiss.
We did get one more hint of badassery from Joe during this time in the build-up to the SummerSlam match between Rollins and a debuting Dominic Mysterio. Rollins harassed Phillips over some commentary from the week before, only for Joe to stand up and defend his colleague in a really cool way that was never really followed up on. Joe's final highlight from this run came on the first night of WrestleMania 37 in Tampa, their first live crowd since March the previous year, which was delayed for several minutes due to a storm warning. And let me tell you, nobody made a rain poncho look better than the impeccably dressed Samoa Joe. Then, they fired him. Yep. As is often tradition at Titan Towers, WWE cut a whole bunch of people after Mania. This round included Joe, the Iconics, Mickie James, Bo Dallas, and more. I guess it shouldn't have been a huge surprise given how little Joe was being used at this point and how injury-prone he was, but at the same time, his wrestling knowledge is vast, and his time on commentary showed he could perform well in other roles. Perhaps keenly aware of that fact as AEW was picking up steam, Triple H got in Vince's ear, and just 2 months later, Joe got rehired. This time, he returned to NXT to a massive pop as GM William Regal's new enforcer. The NXT champion Karrion Kross was going mad with power, assaulting Regal off camera, wearing weird gladiator shit on Raw, and so forth. That prompted Joe to finally step back in the ring at TakeOver 36 in Orlando, soundly defeating a neutered Kross to win back the NXT title. Then, he vacated it. Yup. Samoa Joe's win over Kross would be his one and only match during this abbreviated run. Shortly after winning the title, Joe contracted COVID and was taken off of TV, while announcers claimed he had to relinquish the championship due to an injury. Credit to them, very believable. While this was happening, Triple H was forced to take time away from day-to-day operations due to his heart condition. In his absence, Vince McMahon suddenly felt the urge to turn his ball cap to the side and throw multicolored paint all over the walls of the Performance Center. NXT 2.0 was born, and suddenly there wasn't much room in this revamped developmental for a grizzled old vet like Joe. He would stay on behind the scenes as a trainer for several months before being released once again in January of 2022, which just had to be the result of some power play between Vince and his son-in-law. With the wrestling arms race very much alive during this time, it wasn't a matter of if, but when Tony Khan would sign Samoa Joe to a deal. The when came at Supercard of Honor in Dallas that April, the first Ring of Honor show under its new ownership. From there, Joe would win their TV title and hold it for a record 574 days, and even hold the TNT title for a bit at the same time, before going on to win the AEW World title twice at the time of this recording. He's also been a trios champion with the Ops. See? Not so hard, is it, WWE? AEW's lighter schedule has no doubt been kinder to him as well. Except for a training injury earlier this year, I don't think any of Joe's time off TV was because of him being legitimately hurt. And even if he's not the same man he was 15 years ago, the guy can still hang with the best of them and make every match look like a rip-roaring fight. Back in NXT, Joe was good for the brand and vice versa, but he never seemed to fit in on either Raw or Smackdown. The guy could talk for days, and he made everything he did in the ring look legitimate. It would have been cool to see him get at least one serious run in the main event, but it was clear that Vince McMahon was never going to get him, even if he could stay healthy. In the end, Joe's struggle with WWE seemed all too similar to what happened to him in TNA, but at least he won the title there.
Don't forget about Lowell, Brian. Don't you dare forget about Lowell. I know I never will.
Much like when he first arrived to NXT in 2015, I believe Joe and AEW today have been beneficial for each other. And as Joe continues to wrestle at a high level in his later years, this most recent run feels like a big validation and recognition for all he'd accomplished in his career. In the eyes of many fans, Joe's strong record in AEW makes up for all the starts and stops that made his WWE tenure so frustrating. But what did you think about Samoa Joe's time in WWE? What were your favorite matches or moments involving the Samoan Submission Machine, whether it be on NXT, Raw, or SmackDown? I want to hear about it in the comment section below. Thanks for watching, everybody. Don't forget to give the video a thumbs up if you liked it. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.